After being in this industry for over 30 years, probably the biggest question I get all the time is, how do I get that job? How do I become a game designer? It takes a lot of work. Do you know this really hard word called fun? It's so hard, it is so elusive, and everybody has a different idea about what is fun.
Hi everybody, I'm Troy Dunniway.
I have over 35 years experience in games. I've worked on over 100 games. Worked at Microsoft, Sony, Disney, Ubisoft, EA. I helped create the program at CG Spectrum for game design. The best advice I can kind of give you is you got to work hard, right? This is something, if you really want this career, that's not just a job. It's hyper creative, both from design, writing, artistic, engineering. Almost every aspect and skill set is needed to be a great game designer. That's what's really hard about it. You have to kind of be a jack of all trades these days. And yes, there are some specialists out there, but you really have to figure out, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be the uber super generalist? Do you want to be the specialist, right? And see the pros and the cons, of both sides. But either way, you got to show people what you're capable of. And so first and foremost, you have to have an amazing portfolio. You got to really show people, what is fun, and try to show them how you can make something fun. And this is really hard to do in a portfolio, especially if you're maybe just going to show them some videos, maybe some design documentation, things like that. But remember, in your portfolio, they really want to see the process you went through. If you just show them a final little playable game that you did in 48 hours, they're going to just kind of go, It's not what they want to see. They want to know and see that you can build big, complex, scary games, that you know how to tackle really hard problems, that you can design your way into it and not just implement, not just build. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that their portfolios and stuff were just things they built in Unreal or built in their game engine. And they just went in, and started building levels. Well, what was the level? I don't know. I built something that was there. That's wrong. You really need to, again, show them you can design, right? And critical thinking is really one of the most underrated skills that you really need to have, along with communication. Your resume is the first thing that's going to get you in the door. But the resume needs some experience. So beyond the portfolio, the next thing you really need to know is, how do I get some experience? Even if it's unpaid, maybe it's an internship, maybe I go do group projects with friends, whatever that is. There's lots of forums, lots of places you can go, join a little team, build some stuff, do some little projects, do some big projects. Figure out a way to kind of get something, 1, 2, 3 projects there on your resume to kind of show that you've done a little bit of group work. And that goes hand in hand with your portfolio. So those two are kind of linked together. But what that's really doing is strengthening your resume. You want to show them on your resume that you know how to use the tools. You want to show them you have some experience. And that's going to open the door again to, like, your portfolio. They go, your resume is okay. Let's look at the portfolio. That portfolio, they go like, ooh, okay, I see the potential. There are some design documents there, some nice thinking, some interesting ideas. They built something that was decent. It doesn't have to be great. They built it by themselves. So, I'll give them a pass on how good it is, but I want to see something that's fun, see if they understand what that is, and maybe even see if they iterated on it, right? And so that skill set is then going to open the door to, hopefully your job interview, right? So now you also need to know how to communicate, right? So learning and building the communication skills. That means you got to not only know how to talk, but you got to talk the talk, as we say. You got to be able to know how to, in real time, talk game design. Go, what is fun? How does this work, right? So building a strong foundation for core fundamental game design skills is really the most important thing that you have to do. Do you know this really hard word called fun? It's so hard. It is so elusive, and everybody has a different idea about what is fun, right? And so if you don't understand that thing, it'd be like wanting to be a painter, and do beautiful watercolor paintings and things. But if you don't know how to draw, if you don't know how to do shapes, how are you ever going to paint? Right? And so as a game designer, we have to start with these fundamentals of what makes something fun, what makes something, that people want to play, understand our users, all these things. These are the core fundamental building blocks, the theory of design, that critical thinking, those kind of things. And if you don't start with that strong foundation, how are you ever going to build a great portfolio? How are you ever going to really write a true game design document? How are you ever going to show them that? And then that last step again, if I have to get into a job interview and somebody's going to hammer you and ask you hard questions and go like, why did you do that? And you're like, I don't know. I just did. Not a good answer, right? Keep asking why, right? Why is one of the most powerful questions we have as a game designer. So learn how to use that. Learn how to ask it to yourself. Learn how to ask it to others. Learn how to ask it about other people's products, right? Why was that fun? Why was that cool? Why did that sell really well? Why did that fail? Like, right? Why did I do this? Why did I do that, right? Those simple things, while they sound really silly, are incredibly hard, incredibly difficult. But if you can't do that, and if you can't learn to be comfortable by doing that and thinking on your feet and really being able to be agile, in how you think and how you problem solve and to kind of look at things from many different ways, it's really hard. You also got to play a lot of games. Go out there and understand the medium, understand what's fun, understand, what your competitors are. If you're going to go into a job interview, research the company, understand the company, play their games, understand their genres, understand the ins and outs of what they're building. And, and that's what's hard, is because that foundation that we've built also is not necessarily genre specific. You could go work in first-person shooters for 20 years and be the top first-person shooter game designer in the world. That doesn't make you qualified to go work on an RPG, right? And so a lot of our foundational skills also don't necessarily cross over from job to job. So we have to do that extra research as we're getting ready to go into a job interview and make sure that we're ready for it. But also remember that people aren't necessarily just going to open up your resume just because you send it to a random email address or apply on LinkedIn, right? So make sure you're networking, make sure you go to events, make sure you're connecting with people on LinkedIn or other networking, social networking platforms. Go to any kind of thing that you can to network with professionals. Find people who inspire you and reach out and say, hey, dude, can I ask you some questions? And and be enthusiastic. See if they'll help you. So it's really hard. It's going to take you some time, but it's going to be well worth it. This is an incredible job, in a great industry with some amazing people. And don't be, sad, don't be hurt from some rejections. You're going to get rejected and rejected and rejected. But that's kind of game design in general. We're constantly, being faced with rejection. How do we fight back against that? How do we make it better? How do we learn from that? And how do we counter that? How do we have that grit, as they say? That's what's important. So don't give up. Fight for the dreams. Go after the job you want. I hope you someday will see you in the industry.
If you like this, please like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Take care now.